Good morning. It's actually a real honour to be here before you today. So let's get in. Ruth provided a good segue into this talk, I think. We'll see how we go. My name's Linton Brimblecombe. I'm a vegetable grower in the Lockyer Valley, and I'm talking about the adaptation of farm technology in a challenging environment. Today I'm going to just talk a little bit about me and then just try and set the scene a bit. Working in a challenging environment. I'll then touch on a bit about the on-farm research and some of the stuff that we're doing on my property, the what, where and how, and then where to from here. I guess, although this is my story, it's not just special to me. It's been reflected throughout agriculture in Australia, as we've heard from a couple of the speakers already this morning. So a little bit about me. I farm with my wife, as has already been said. We're growing a number of crops, including sweet corn, onions. We used to grow beetroot. We're a major supplier to Golden Circle, but under Heinz's global sourcing of food policy, that went to a cheaper production area, being New Zealand. So we had a bit of a change in business plan last year. We're irrigating about 350 hectares, and we're just about double cropping, so you could double that area, I guess. I am involved in the Climate Champion program, and I guess that's where the invitation came today. And we're just, it's a group of people trying to raise awareness of climate issues and how they impact on the farm. We're not greenies, we're pretty practical people, but it is an issue that we all need to be aware of, and I'll talk about that shortly. I've also got a seat on the Queensland Government Land Audit Committee, which is an interesting process that's happening right now as we speak. I've also been particularly involved for a significant part of my life in the push for recycled water for irrigation. So that's my mob. My wife, who I love dearly, my two children, who I wish they would love each other. But no, we have some fun. So let's set the scene. Who's ever seen the movie Forrest Gump? Yep, good movie. One of my favourite movies. Talking about mental illness, talking about physical illness, talking about life in general. But the particular guy who speaks to me in this movie is Lieutenant Dan. And Lieutenant Dan has some issues in life. He was in Vietnam with Forrest Gump, and as you can see, he suffered quite badly. But he ended up on a fishing trawler with Forrest, and in the particular scene that I'm referring to, a strong wind blows up, and Lieutenant Dan's hanging on to the top of the mast, and he's really having a battle with God in this scene. And Forrest Gump's giving a commentary that I was scared, but Lieutenant Dan was damn mad, and he's saying, "Come on, God, bring it on." Well, I can relate to that story because when I was 16, I was standing on our family's aqua ammonia tanks. They were huge fertiliser tanks that we had in our backyard. We were the local depot for nitrogen fertiliser. And I used to stand on these tanks as the storms were rolling in from the west, and I'd say, "Come on, God, if you exist, come and bring that storm and irrigate my father's parched crops." And I'd have this argument with God as the lightning was striking around me. And if you've ever seen a lightning strike in a cotton crop, you'd be impressed that I probably shouldn't be on that aqua tank at that time. But I got over my argument with God, and we're pretty good mates right now. But when farmers start taking pictures of storms, you know they've got issues. And this picture was taken in 1993. It's interesting that I'd already done this talk yesterday. I put these series of slides together. I attended the Weather Bureau's National Climate presentation yesterday in Brisbane on their 3-month outlook. And just to give you the scoop on the news, we're currently in a pretty neutral phase of SOI or something or other, and we're on a light El Nino situation. And the last time we were in this period was 1993, and I went, wow, that's amazing. 1993 is a drought that Brisbane didn't have. Wivenhoe filled during this period. What were we doing in 1993? We were building dams in a severe drought. Paul Keating went to Cunnamulla for a visit, and at the point of that visit, he drought declared the whole state of Queensland. So What else was happening post-93 in my life? It became obvious to me as an individual and as a community. I had a number of helpers and people to process this, that we had to do something about this crazy nation that we live in. Because if we don't take steps to help control the variability within our inputs into our cropping situation, we're just going to have to put up with it and shut up. So we started on this journey of this process of fighting, we saw as an option, this recycled water. 2008, fast forward, and I'm just giving you a little segue here, that all of a sudden Brisbane's thirsty. And Peter Beattie took our concept and implemented it, holus bolus, except for the ultimate aim that it was originally meant for, which was the irrigation section. We're only missing about 50 kilometres of pipeline. We've got a $2 billion pipe between Brisbane and Wivenhoe Dam that's been used to about 3% of its ability. It's almost a tragic story in planning. So we built these dams by the end of, after some strategic planning. We heard about planning this morning. By about 2000, we had about 3,500 megalitres of on-farm storage. It was a specific route that we went down to take control of our own destiny. And there's my old dad and me looking very proud of our water. So what of adaptation of farm technology in a challenging environment? If I just talk about this challenging environment for a minute, and we've heard Tim Flannery talk about climate change, and I don't care if you believe in climate change or not, but my message is that we live in this land of variables, and we operate with these variables, and unless you take control, as Ruth is doing, that is an external variable that she has been challenged with. You can lose sight of your purpose, and you drown in your situation. So some of the variables, cost of production, resources, markets, financial inhibitors, government regulation, and we heard about that this morning, external pressures, which Ruth was just talking about, environmental pressures, and there I would mention climate change. And as I said, it's only one of these variables, labour variables, and Ruth was touching on that, production variables. And if we let any one of these engulf us, it can become overwhelming and our business fails, and all of a sudden the wheels have just totally fallen off. And you can just stand there and shake your head. This guy drove around that hole for 8 hours, and it was the last bin of the day, and he just drove that 200 horsepower tractor right through that hole that I dug the day before to fix an irrigation problem. Well, the tractor came out, but the 7-tonne of beetroot ended up on the ground. I just stood there and shook my head. Yeah, alrighty. Let's get on to the crux of this presentation. So the point that I'm trying to make is that no single issue drives change. For example, putting a solar farm may make you feel warm and fuzzy, but it also comes down to a commercial decision. That unless a business has a good handle of a number of the before-mentioned change motivators, it is doomed to fail. We've been working in 3 areas on my farm lately. Water, the use and efficiency, energy resources, conservation and efficiency measures, and the soil health and use. So if I just touch on the water, probably the most significant Queensland government policy in the last 10 years on agriculture has been the sponsorship of the Water Use Efficiency Program. I won't say it was their only policy in agriculture, but it was certainly a significant one. It was delivered through industry groups. It was on about water use efficiency, irrigation system energy, and efficiency measurements, measuring the efficiency of that irrigation system essentially. It was on about setting benchmarks and then raising that bar. So for example, we're going from high pressure guns to low to medium pressure booms and trickle. Growers' knowledge on water and irrigation management improved significantly through this process. Growers became more aware of the energy more aware of water and energy efficiency resulting in reduced labour and less water used. And then the gains were not only measured but documented. So it was a good program. So that's an example of an irrigator on my place. We went from hand shift lines to an intermediate 100-metre boom. Now we're using these things. Each farmer has adopted different technology to suit his farm, but that thing's been measured and tested and tried, and you can probably still see issues with it. The boom back should be lowered, and there are incentives to do these things. That's a C probe that we use to measure soil water, and I can download that information to my computer. That's a crop of onions there, and it's just really good information that you can use to improve your management decision making. This is a project by the CSIRO on evaporation on farm storage. The real emphasis on this project was actually to reduce evaporation off Wivenhoe Dam, and they need a large farm storage to work on. And hey, we didn't mind getting information out of it. And we're using biodegradable polymers to try and spread on the surface of that dam to reduce evaporation. Wasn't real successful, but we got a lot of information out of it. And the USQ was also involved in that, as well as a number of collaborating organisations. Energy resources, I guess the major driver here is the oil price, and how affecting the price of diesel fuel and energy inputs. We have to discover ways of using less, discover ways of being more efficient. So we just heard Tim Flannery talking about solar panels, and I guess for me, the best way to reduce energy costs on farm was to put in a solar farm. That's a 30 kilowatt energy system where we're single axis tracking the sun from east to west. By that single axis on where we live, you get about 30% more production in your energy for your solar panel cost. If we were to go to north dual axis, we get about 6% increase on top of that 30. So for that's just where we're at. That's running it's not running a pump, it's co-sharing energy between a pump and the grid, and I'm about equal since it's been in and up and running. I've used about 11,000 kilowatts and I've put in about 11,000. So yeah, it's a good system. This is a picture of a tractor, obviously, and a paddock. Couple of special things here. We're going to tram lining. Horticulture traditionally hasn't been able to go down the road of no-till, minimum till. We've got to have that seed bed perfect to get those little onion seeds in there, which our guy talking about backyard planting would know how specific some of those seeds, how small they are. Something I just want to talk about this tractor for a minute, something special about this tractor. That tractor has so much technology in it that it actually doesn't need an operator. The only reason it has an operator in there is because under US legislation, the machine has to be able to recognise a small child within 3 metres. The operator sitting in that tractor sits like this. He doesn't steer it. When it gets to the end, it can turn itself. It can pick its machine up through headland management systems. We don't use them much. I see a farmer up the back. He's probably shaking his head going, oh yeah, it's rubbish. We don't use it. Why? Because what else has an operator got to do? At least he's got to do something at the end of the row. But it is very good technology. And we're saying to the tractor manufacturers, we don't want steering wheels. And they're saying we're not there yet, but it's coming. Soil, just touching on soil, it does overlap with resources. So soil health is critical. Our federal government is on about the putting the carbon back into the soil, the organic matter back into the soil. The jury is still out on that. We're not there yet. I had to put plant breeding in there because it's just so critical to answering Ruth's question about how we're going to feed the world in the future. New technologies, including Incitec, have a product called Entec, putting a coating on a fertiliser to slow down that nitrogen release. And it's looking very good. The DAF is funding a program currently to just measure how significant that Entec is. Entec fertiliser, for a tonne of Entec is about $900. For a tonne of traditional fertiliser equivalent is about $750. So there is a cost impost, but we're looking at saving about 30% of nitrogen release to the atmosphere. Significant. Our soil health, getting organics back into that soil, we're very aware of it as a farming community. So where to from here? What of the future of farming? I believe that the future of farming is bright if we embrace and discover change. It cannot be a solo journey. It has to embrace all of those involved in the farming systems, as we've been hearing today. This journey has to be taken with farmers having a key sense for business. As I said at the beginning, if you have one of those inputs wrong or a number of those inputs wrong, you will be challenged. We are working with variables, but we have to work to enable food and fibre production into the future at affordable price, quality and an availability, so that we can, as an Australian community, play our part to feed the world for the future generations.